I was saying, y'all, it's your boy Rico from StreetScores, man, and we gotta talk about the breaking news. I know it came out yesterday, but I've been so busy to the point that this is like, I'm just now sitting down in my room right now since like way earlier this morning, dating all the way back to last night. Crazy. Out of the way, Kliff Kingsbury is staying in DC. He's going to run it back for at least one more year with the Washington Commanders. We're going to talk about why that's so important. But we're not safe yet because there's another Commanders genius, a future prodigy, potentially the next Sean McVay that other teams are trying to steal away from us. We're going to talk about the interviews that he has set up with 2 other NFL teams. Also, Adam Peters and Lance Newmarker at the Senior Bowl. We're going to talk about all of that and more. But before we do, of course, I have a trivia question, January 29th trivia question. And here's the question right here. I'm going to give you the answer at the end of the video. What first-round draft pick in 2018 posted a career-high 11.5 sacks to lead the Commanders in that category in 2022 and earned his first career Pro Bowl berth? And before we dive into everything, make sure you still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, and still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. I promise y'all, as soon as I'm not busy outside of StreetScores, y'all are going to literally be getting like 2-3 videos a day. I have so many different things to talk about. I'm just backed up. So make sure you stay tuned for everything. Of course, just because it's the Commanders off season does not mean it's the StreetScores off season. So we're still doing daily videos, again, multiple videos a day, and we'll still be doing live streams where I give you my opinions on a lot of different things. And we're still going to be doing call-in shows as well all throughout the off season. So make sure you stay tuned. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video instead of wasting even more of your time, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with the biggest news. Again, I know I'm a little late, but I've just been that busy. I was happy to even get the video out that I did yesterday. So I'm trying to get to the point where I'm getting to like literally 2-3 videos a day. How many video ideas I have. I mean, we still haven't even talked about the Commanders' biggest weaknesses. I have a video ready where I'm going to talk about which 2024 Commanders players that are now 2025 free agents that we should re-sign, which we should let go, all of that type of stuff. And then of course top free agents at different positions that we should target. I mean, so many videos. It's on the way. But instead of wasting even more of y'all time, Commanders offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury is staying with Washington despite interest from multiple teams this cycle to become a head coach. But he could potentially be, and he more than likely will be, at least, if not a top head coaching candidate, maybe even the top head coaching candidate. Like I said weeks ago, months ago, I think, for a lot of different reasons, I felt like Kliff Kingsbury would end up staying. But one of the main reasons was that Ben Johnson is the belle of the ball right now. He's the one getting all of the attention. He's the one that everybody wants. And Kliff Kingsbury, even though he's one of the top candidates, he's not the top candidate. He was second fiddle to Ben Johnson. Next year, he has his opportunity. If we're talking about leverage as far as trying to squeeze out every penny and maximize the dollars that you can get in like your next contract, he would be better off waiting till the next cycle rather than this cycle in 2025, because he'll be the guy. He'll be the guy that everybody's fighting for, trying to bid each other over. This one team said they're willing to pay me this. So, hey, what are you going to do to outmatch that, to outdo that, to offer more money? And then he can go back and forth. That's the type of stuff that he could do next year. Whereas this year, he could have done that a little bit. But then again, money's probably not a big thing to him because he's still getting paid by the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to talk about that. Out of the way, though, fantastic news that the Washington Commanders will keep him next year. Shouts out to Chick Hernandez because he did confirm. He said, we can confirm through team sources that offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury will remain the offensive coordinator role for the Commanders. So this is a Commanders reporter that's saying from the team itself, he's confirmed that this is official. It was first reported by Andrew Schultz, and we're going to dive into his tweets right after this one because he said some pretty interesting things in there. But continuing with Chick Hernandez, he said Kingsbury helped turn an offense from 24th to 7th in the league while working with the star in the making and Jaden Daniels. And I feel like that's very important because Jaden Daniels is great, but Kliff Kingsbury played a large role as to why this offense not only went from bad to great, and even historically great in some aspects, but also how quickly it happened. It wasn't just and there were some bumps in the road, maybe like very early on, but by second half against the Giants, at the very least, the very latest, week 3 against the Bengals, we took off. Like, that was it. Once we got there, the offense was ready. And I feel like Jaden Daniels being who he is, and Kliff Kingsbury, with as much experience he's had with, grooming so many great quarterbacks to win in Heisman's, Offensive Rookie of the Years, Pat Mahomes in college, now look at him at the NFL level. I mean, granted, now Pat Mahomes is Pat Mahomes. He has great talent and everything like that. But Kliff Kingsbury played a role in that. And just his experience with quarterback development from so many different places, so many different types of quarterbacks, mobile, maybe not that mobile, big arm, maybe not that big of an arm. Like, he has the full repertoire to experience, the perfect resume to be, hey, I need a quarterback developed. I'm about to draft a quarterback early in this draft, early in the first round. I need a guy that can come in and maximize that guy's ability and as quickly as possible. Kliff Kingsbury's that. So again, Jaden Daniels is great, but Kliff Kingsbury is great as well. Shouts out to Jordan Schultz, the origin of all of this, the catalyst for why I'm even recording this video. He tweeted, breaking, Commanders offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury, despite interest from the Saints and other teams, has decided to stay in Washington for a second season following a remarkable turnaround that saw the team go from 4 wins to an NFC Championship appearance. And I'm just assuming because Ben Johnson stayed one more year last year, and then he went and took the head coaching opportunity this year because he liked the situation with the Bears a little bit better. Kliff Kingsbury probably looked around and was like, the Saints or the Jaguars are probably the best head coaching opportunities right now. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stay with Washington one more year, see what opens up next year. So I feel like he's probably following in Ben Johnson's footsteps in that way, where he's not like literally, what did Ben Johnson do? I'm going to do that. It's just smart to probably wait another year for a better situation so you don't end up in another, even Arizona Cardinals is actually a pretty decent situation that he went into, and that still didn't work out. So he's probably looking for like an ideal situation where maybe he can find his next Jaden Daniels or maybe something like that. But right now, the Saints definitely don't have that, and the Jaguars thought they had it, but Trevor Lawrence doesn't seem to be that guy either. So he's probably like, yeah, I'll wait for at least somebody Caleb Williams level of potential and showing some signs of promise opens up. It's probably team, it's probably quarterback situation, or at the very least, can you have a high draft pick and I can look at the future draft coming up like we just did with Jaden Daniels and be like, yeah, I could get that guy and turn him into something. It's not looking that way for a lot of these guys out here because a lot of the top draft picks still kept their head coaches, and so that wasn't open, so he doesn't have an opportunity to get like a high draft pick. And then even most people see this quarterback class as weak in comparison to the previous one last year, or really in comparison to a lot of other quarterback classes. So this just wasn't the year for Kliff Kingsbury to leave for so many different reasons. I've already given you all the commander side reasons, but now I'm also including those. Now, finishing up Jordan Schultz's tweet, he said his return ensures continuity for the Commanders offense heading into 2025. Kingsbury will be a top head coaching candidate again next year, but the opportunity in Washington was too good to walk away from for now, right now. And I think he's tweeting that from the source that probably told him that Kliff Kingsbury is staying. Again, Jordan Schultz, whose tweets I'm reading right now, was the first person to announce it. So whatever sources he had were probably close to Kliff Kingsbury, and that source probably also told him that, yeah, man, I don't know, this Washington situation is too pretty. It's too great for me to walk away from it right now. I got to at least run it back one more time type of thing, and that's great to hear. And then Jordan Schultz also quote tweeted himself and said Kliff Kingsbury made it known he wouldn't interview with other teams during the Commanders playoff run, recognizing the magic of the season unfolding. He cherished every moment in Washington, watching the team grow together, and found it too difficult to walk away from after just 1 year. I mean, him staying is one thing, but then hearing the context behind why he's staying and his mentality going into it is even more amazing. I mean, first of all, we already talked about it. Other people getting ready for their championship, their playoff games, like Ben Johnson. He interviewed with the Bears, I think, virtually before we played them. And then they ended up losing. And Kliff Kingsbury was like, nah, I'm not taking any interviews. I'm riding this wave until the wheels fall off. You know what I'm saying? I'm 100% committed. I'm not doing interviews with other teams, thinking about different situations, starting to dream and, start to, okay, if I go to this team, I can do this. I can bring this guy with me to be my defense. He was like, I'm trying to block all of that out. I'm 100% focused on making sure the Commanders are as successful as possible, at least offensively, so we can go as far as we can. That was extreme dedication right there. We already talked about that, but then also the fact that he looked at what the future of the 2025 Commanders could be and was like, man, I could be a head coach somewhere else, but I feel like being an offensive coordinator for what these Commanders will be in 2025 after Adam Peters gets another offseason, another free agency, a draft to make this team even better, that was just too great to pass up, to not at least give it one more year. I love it. Shouts out to Al Galdi, because I agree with him when he tweeted, outstanding news that Kliff Kingsbury is not pursuing an NFL head coaching job and is remaining as Commanders offensive coordinator. Was masterful this season. I mean, we got to tip our caps to what Kliff Kingsbury did this year. I feel like, just to take a break from Al Galdi's tweet real quick, I feel like that narrative about Kliff Kingsbury's second half of season's defenses figuring them out, that narrative kind of died this year. And I feel like Kliff Kingsbury deserves some of the blame for that in Arizona, because, you know, that happened like all 4 years he was head coach for them. But I also feel like a lot of their players, deserve some of the blame as well. Because I feel like, I mean, suddenly now he has Jaden Daniels as his quarterback, and there's no half-season slump that never recovers. You know, at a certain point, Jaden Daniels was bothered by his ribs, even though they led on like he wasn't as bothered as he was. But you saw that first time we played the Eagles, some of those games in there, he just wasn't his true self. Even against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that was not true 100% Jaden Daniels. But immediately after Jaden Daniels looks healthy again, and he's able to throw the same way he usually wants to throw, he's able to scramble and run as much as he wants to, suddenly this offense is right back to balling out. And I feel like that's a mix of Kliff Kingsbury maybe learning from his past mistakes. Also, Kliff Kingsbury is a genius, so that's why I feel like some of the Cardinals players and maybe other coaches deserve some blame for that as well. And then also having Jaden Daniels as your quarterback, which is another reason why Kliff Kingsbury said, I gotta run this back again. I can't leave Jaden Daniels after just 1 year, how great he made me look. Kliff Kingsbury even said multiple times throughout the season in press conferences after games, after practices and things like that, like he even admitted that sometimes I called the wrong play, but Jaden Daniels is just so fantastic, such an elite quarterback, that he made my wrong plays right. It was the wrong play call, it was the wrong situation, and Jaden Daniels still found a way to come up with a first down, convert a fourth down, score a touchdown, and things like that. In no situations, bad play call, Jaden Daniels makes up for it. So I just feel like for a lot of different reasons, Kliff Kingsbury, hey, that narrative of second halves of seasons, defense is figuring them out, he never adjusts, that's dead now. You saw the run we just went on in these playoffs, man. So I feel like we're good to go. Not much to really necessarily worry about there. Finishing up Al Galdi's tweet, he said, best work by a Washington offensive coordinator since at least Sean McVay in 2015 and 2016, and maybe even better. I mean, if we're talking about historically, like some of the crazy stats that came from this season, like up there with like the Randy Moss, Tom Brady Patriots, the greatest show on turf Rams, like literally up there and even surpassing those great offenses of all time in NFL history in certain stats. I mean, like fourth down conversion percentage, all kinds of crazy things, efficiency, never punting, no turnover, like all kinds of stuff, man, like consistent scoring drives, efficiency. This offense was one of the greatest of all time in NFL history. Forget where we're ranked in passing, like sixth and things like that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Forget where we're ranked in like rushing yards per game. We're talking about efficiency numbers and like clutch numbers and things like that, advanced statistics. We were one of the greatest offenses in NFL history this past year. So shouts out to Sean McVay. But Kliff Kingsbury killed it. Now, I do believe, I've talked about this in several videos before the past few months, since Kliff Kingsbury's name has been mentioned, as far as like maybe head coaching opportunities goes, I feel like Sean McVay will probably be the better head coach because he's willing to deal with defense a little bit. Kliff Kingsbury, I mean, he showed you in Arizona, he wants absolutely nothing to deal with the defense. He doesn't like dealing with agents, making phone calls, contract negotiations, all of that team building stuff, especially on the defensive side of the ball, whereas Sean McVay is a little bit more well-rounded. I would probably give Kliff Kingsbury the edge when it comes to offensive genius, but I feel like head coaching-wise specifically, Sean McVay probably makes for the better head coach because Kliff Kingsbury literally just wants to focus on offense and that's it. So I'm surprised that he's even considering getting another head coaching job, but maybe he's learned from his mistakes in Arizona. Maybe he's gonna, fix those, rectify those, and somehow move on and be a different guy than he was in Arizona. We'll see. Who knows? Either way, that's not really important right now. Shouts out to Ref the District because I completely agree with this tweet. They said, massive, massive massive respect for Kingsbury for sticking around to finish the job, and I think that's a great way to look at it. I think he's staying to finish the job. I think he wants to go all of the way. I think he feels like if we don't kill ourselves with fumbles, if the refs don't hate on us for absolutely no reason, and if the Eagles aren't just far more talented top to bottom in literally every way except for Jaden Daniels, we probably win that game. We probably go to the Super Bowl, and who knows, maybe we even win it. And he's probably like, hey, man, after another off season of not only gaining better players, but me and Jaden Daniels getting this offense, taking it to an even another level, adding extra layers, because now we have all of that other stuff down packed. We went through the whole playbook within a year. Now let's add extra layers to that playbook to make it even more complicated and more difficult for opposing defenses to stop. We can add in all kinds of creative, interesting things. Now that I know that you got it in you, oh, we're going to test you. We're going to make things even crazier for you offensively because we know you can handle it, Jaden Daniels. So I'm pretty sure he's like, man, imagine what this offense can be next year now that we can spend the entire training camp growing on the offense, not just learning the offense. I mean, the sky's the limit with this offense with Jaden Daniels and Kliff Kingsbury as a duo, man. Shouts out to Mark Bullock because I agree with this as well. He said, always suspected this would be the case, that Kliff Kingsbury would stay. Thought only really the Bears job with Caleb or the Jags job with Trevor would appeal to him, but felt he'd most likely be back to work with Jaden Daniels for a second year and set up a good chance for a head coaching job next year. I agree. It just seemed like it made way too much sense. Also, big for the Commanders, though, to have this continuity. Lots of doubts when Kliff was hired, but he followed in Dan Quinn's lead by evolving. Dan Quinn evolved as well. Staff around him has helped him with some blind spots. He's done great to be open to change and be interesting to see the evolution of the system going into next year as well. And that's a good point too. Kliff Kingsbury, I feel like he does not get enough credit for doing a great job of orchestrating the offense with, because some people will probably look at it as too many chefs in the kitchen, but you can see some shades of Anthony Lynn's run game as our run game coordinator, running backs coach, and some of the plays that we're calling. You see some Giants plays. There's some running game stuff that they did, in 2023 with Saquon Barkley. You're seeing Bobby Johnson's influence as our offensive lines coach coming from being the Giants offensive lines coach with some of the plays that we run here, Kliff Kingsbury calling those. You're seeing Brian Callahan from the Eagles. You see some of the stuff the Eagles ran last year with Jalen Hurts when Brian Callahan was their offensive coordinator and then now was our passing game coordinator this year. I feel like Kliff Kingsbury deserves a ridiculous, a crazy amount of credit for putting his ego to the side and allowing Anthony Lynn, Bobby Johnson, and Brian Callahan, all of these guys, to get their own versions of shine as well, where everybody contributes, everybody gets a chance. I keep saying Brian Callahan. Brian Johnson, my fault. Every time I say Brian Callahan, think Brian Johnson from the Eagles. Either way, though, Bobby Johnson, Brian Johnson, Anthony Lynn, allowing all of these guys to have a say in not only the play designing, but the play calling as well. Like, oh, okay, Bobby Johnson, I think your play will work for the situation. Let's do that. We've practiced that all season. Let's do, what I'm saying? I feel like Kliff Kingsbury, I feel like that's even more incredible than what he did as an individual. Being able to put all of that together, wrap it all up in one beautiful, historically great offense, historically efficient offense is absolutely insane. So it's wonderful to have him back for another year, even just off of that alone. Shouts out to Grant Paulson because I agree with this as well. He said massive for the Commanders. Perhaps the second most important person in the building this season. You could argue. Gives them at least one more year to prepare somebody under Kingsbury to replace him if he walks in a year. That's another great point right there. First of all, there is an argument to be made that Kliff Kingsbury was the second most important in the entire front office coaching staff, at least coaching staff wise. Dan Quinn, then Kliff Kingsbury at the very least. But you can maybe even throw in front office, you can throw in all players, everything. But also the point that, another year of Kliff Kingsbury also gives us another year to buy time to see if any of these other offensive coordinators offensive coaches that we already have at lesser levels on this coaching staff, if they're ready. Like, you have another year of it. You don't have to go out there and be our offensive coordinator just yet. You have another year to kind of learn under Kliff Kingsbury, see all of the little minor details that we don't necessarily see as fans from the outside. You're there with them every day, all day, every week, every month, and all year and things like that. Off-season, training camp, mini camps, OTAs. How do we practice? How do we work these plays in? Like, what's the pacing of install? We're going to learn this much of the playbook now. We're going to learn this much of the playbook later, this much of the playbook after that. All of the really small, minor minor things that, that really add up to way bigger impacts. I mean, I feel like Kliff Kingsbury did everything almost perfect this year. And I feel like another year of having Kliff Kingsbury to show everybody on this offensive staff, when we're talking about quarterbacks coach, wide receivers coach, passing game coordinator, whoever is ready next in line to step up to be our offensive coordinator for when Kliff Kingsbury more than likely leaves 2026, those guys around this coaching staff have another year to kind of learn under Kliff Kingsbury's wing and be ready to take his place by the time he is ready to leave. I feel like that's big. That's a big part of this. Also shouts out to Mark Phillips, because I agree. He said, we'll lose Kliff eventually, but Jaden starting out 2 years in the same system is a nice luxury. I mean, I'm sure Jaden could hoop in any system. Like Jaden Daniels, he's top 5 quarterback. I feel like no matter what offensive system, you can change it from air raid, the West Coast offense, to whatever you want to do. I'm pretty sure Jaden Daniels will still ball out. But being able to build on the same system from last year sounds scary for the rest of the NFL. Because again, like I said earlier, Jaden Daniels doesn't necessarily have to learn a playbook this offseason like he had to last offseason. Now he's growing on that playbook. He's only getting to a more advanced level. Kliff Kingsbury can go from just having his standard playbook to now we can start to work on a more advanced one. I mean, I think Austin Eckler said that Kliff Kingsbury adds new plays every week, but now this offseason, it's about to get really creative and insane. And that should also allow us to have a faster start this season compared to last season. Because, I mean, to actually look like we're ready for week 1 this time. Remember, week 1.5, that first game against the Buccaneers and the first half against the Giants, we looked like a team that everything was new. Now we'll go into this next season, week 1, looking like how the Buccaneers embarrassed us because we weren't ready and they were. We're going to do that to somebody else, whoever we play week 1. So that's another thing as well. We can get off to a hot start. I feel like that's important. And I mean, let's just pick up right where we left off. I mean, if you're looking at points per game, we were 5th. Yards per game, we were 5th. Points per play, we were 7th. And then yards per play, we were 11th. Third down conversion percentage, we were 6th. And then fourth down conversion percentage, of course, we were first because we were historically great there. And then red zone scoring percentage, we were 6th. And then touchdowns per game, we were 7th. And then even like run game statistics, even though we had a lot of games where we felt like the run game was not doing that well overall throughout the entire season, we were 6th in yards per rush. We were 3rd in rushes per game, and also 4th in rushing yards per game, and 4th in rushing touchdowns per game, even though Jaden Daniels was a lot of that. That's why I felt like our run game wasn't very efficient, because Jaden Daniels made up for a lot of that with his scrambles and even some of his quarterback design runs. And then passing game wise, we were 6th in completion percentage. We were 12th in yards per pass, 12th in passing yards per game, and then 9th in only interception percentage thrown with 1.56. That boy Jaden Daniels played fairly mistake-free football throughout the season. So, I mean, that's off of just 1 year in the system. We're like top 6, top 5 in so many different important categories. Imagine what we'll be next year, man. And then even just DVOA wise, offensive DVOA, we were 6th, and then passing DVOA, we were 9th, and rushing DVOA, we were 7th. So those are those advanced stats. But again, ignore all of that. Yeah, it's cool to be 5th, 6th, 7th in certain things, but we were a historically great offense this year, regardless of what some of those stats I just gave you said. Also, you never know, man. We might have lost, like if you really take a step back and think about it, we may have lost them this coaching cycle if we didn't make the playoffs. But after we made it to the NFC Championship, he was probably like, man, we got to run that back. I think there's a whole let's run that back feeling throughout the entire organization. I mean, unfortunately, it will probably be a lot of changes players-wise going from last year to this upcoming season, but coaching and front office-wise, I'm pretty sure a lot of people want to run it back after the run that we just had. Shouts out to Marshall, because I agree. He said Kliff is getting his Arizona money, Washington money as an offensive coordinator. Remember, Arizona is still paying him as a head coach. Washington is now paying him as an offensive coordinator on top of what he's getting paid to be a head coach for the Arizona Cardinals. And then he also gets to enter 2025 with a legit MVP candidate at quarterback. It seems to make too much sense why he stayed another year on top of all of the other reasons I already gave you. Also, shouts out to Resh Manuel, because he also said that key is that Kingsbury likely would have taken other key members of the staff with them. That's another good point. If he would have left this year to be a head coach somewhere else, else, say goodbye to some of the people that we currently have in the coaching staff that we do like. He also said would not be surprised to see some find opportunities even outside of Kliff Kingsbury leaving right now, but it's probably going to be less now that Kliff Kingsbury is staying. That's also a good point, which now takes me to one of the guys that the NFL is keeping their eye on as a potential guy that's going to just absolutely have a meteoric rise out of nowhere, and that's Commanders assistant quarterbacks coach David Blau. He has had a request from the Jets to interview for their quarterbacks coach job, as well as a request from the Bears for their passing game coordinator. And then the Jets, I mean, who's their quarterback? I don't think Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Garrett Wilson, a lot of those players there do not want Aaron Rodgers back. So I guess based on their draft pick, maybe they're going to try to see if they can get Cam Ward or something. Either way, they would like David Blau to be their quarterbacks coach there. And then even the Bears, Ben Johnson is looking like, hey, that David Blau guy that's the assistant quarterbacks coach for the Commanders, I want him to come here and be our passing game coordinator. Skip quarterbacks coach, skip a couple of other spots that people could typically get, going from assistant quarterbacks coach all the way to passing game coordinator. That's like the step right below offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson sees some potential in David Blau. He's only 29 and is already garnering attention only 1 year into his coaching career. Do you know that this is David Blau's first year? This 2024 season was his first year ever coaching in any way possible, and Ben Johnson is already looking at him. Ben Johnson, the genius as is looking at him like, man, I probably need him as my passing game coordinator. I'm telling y'all, watch out. David Blau has a lot of eyes on him right now. Scott Van Pelt even quote tweeted the tweet that I just gave you, the report from Mike Garafolo that I just read to you. Scott Van Pelt quote tweeted it and said, impressed everyone in the building. Bright future here. Scott Van Pelt, huge Commanders fan, so watch out, man. You really, this David Blau guy's a lot of momentum going. Whatever Scott Van Pelt is hearing from behind the scenes with close sources to the team. You know, he works for ESPN. He's one of those guys at ESPN. He's a big Commanders fan. I'm pretty sure he has some guys in the Commanders organization that he talks to. And basically, he said that everybody in the building absolutely loves David Blau. Again, just to let you know, he's only 29 years old. He originally signed on with the Browns as an undrafted free agent out of Purdue back in May of 2019. Cleveland traded him to the Lions coming out of the preseason in exchange for a conditional 2022 7th-round draft pick. And then Blau finished the 2019 season as Detroit starters after Matthew Stafford and Jeff Driscoll sustained season-ending injury. So if you're trying to remember why you remember his name, 2019, he ended up actually starting for the Detroit Lions after Jeff Driscoll and Matthew Stafford were both hurt. Detroit elected to cut Blau loose coming out of training camp and signed him to the practice squad in 2020. He returned to Detroit this past March, but was waived coming out of the preseason and caught on with the Vikings practice squad. And then from there, Arizona opted to sign him off of Minnesota's practice squad, and then he was among the final roster cuts the following season. He last signed onto Detroit's practice squad during the 2023 season. For his career, Blau appeared in only 9 games for the Cardinals and the Lions, making 7 starts. He completed 138 of his 242 passing attempts, 57% not good, for 1,435 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He also added 14 carries for 60 yards. Not a good quarterback career. I mean, that's kind of Ben Johnson. A lot of these geniuses, Sean McVay, did not work out as an actual quarterback on the field. But like as a coach, teaching quarterbacks, tutoring quarterbacks, developing quarterbacks, for some reason that mold of guy just breeds geniuses. And David Blau seems to literally be the guy that's next in line. He just recently began his coaching career, being hired by the Commanders as their assistant quarterbacks coach just in 2014. He's only been doing it for I think less than a year now as a coach out of his entire career right now. And so, just to let you know, we've been talking, it's been me, it's been a lot of us at the Commanders Kings, Louis T, Ed Oliver, and Rio Robinson. We've been talking about David Blau as, hey, watch out, man. He could be like the next Sean McVay or Ben Johnson type of guy that will quickly rise through the ranks out of nowhere. I mean, if he somehow doesn't leave us this offseason, I would bet money that he will for sure be gone early 2026. I mean, people literally talk about him like they used to talk about Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell while they were still underrated position coaches. And it's not hard to give him a promotion to steal Blau away from us right now because he's only our assistant quarterbacks coach. All you have to do is offer him quarterbacks coach like the Jets are interviewing him for, and that's already a raise in title, responsibility, money, credit that he gets to build his resume. I mean, somehow Ben Johnson and a lot of these other guys, especially a lot of guys in the commander staff, are already seeing like, hey, I know Kliff Kingsbury is doing a great job as offensive coordinator. Tavita Pritchard is probably doing a great job as a quarterbacks coach, but that assistant quarterbacks coach, David Blah, he's doing something right over there. So he's already been given a lot of credit, even in his small role and responsibility. Imagine what he's going to do when he gets a bigger one. Again, it's not hard to steal him from us. So I'd be surprised if we go into this 2025 season, he's still our assistant quarterbacks coach, because all you got to do is give him quarterbacks coach, let alone passing game coordinator that Ben Johnson's trying to give him right now. He would be crazy to pass that up. And right now we have no spots for him to be promoted to. Since Kliff Kingsbury is staying as offensive coordinator, that job's taken. Anthony Lynn more than likely staying as our run game coordinator and running backs coach, that's taken. Tavita Pritchard, I mean, that would be your immediate next promotion. I believe I'm assuming he's staying as our quarterbacks coach and probably not going anywhere. So you can't move up to that. And then even assistant head coach and offensive passing game coordinator, which minus the assistant head coach part, Ben Johnson is offering David Blah to come to the Bears to do. Brian Johnson has that spot for us right now. Now, unless Brian Johnson, the whole point of Brian Johnson being titled our assistant head coach by Dan Quinn was to get him ready to go get a head coaching job in 2025. I haven't heard his name mentioned for interviews or anything like that, so it sounds like he's probably going to stay around for like another year at least with us. So offensive passing game coordinator, you can't promote Blau to that. So there's literally no room for him to get promoted in this coaching staff right now. If I'm him, if I'm even his family, go take that Bears job right now. As a Commanders fan, I would love nothing more for him to stick around at least for one more year and to be Jaden Daniels' assistant quarterbacks coach. That would be amazing. That's best case scenario. But talking from his point of view, it would be crazy not to take one of those jobs. The Jets quarterbacks coach, even though that's the ugliest situation, if you can get that Bears passing game coordinator, you need to take that job immediately. If you can somehow see this video, Blau, take that job. I want you to stay with the Commanders, but for your best interest, that job makes too much sense. And you'll be in line to be an offensive coordinator by 2026 if you take that job this year. I'm telling you right now, especially if Caleb Williams ends up balling out, you're going to be given a lot of the credit for that. Now, before we get up out of here, I do want to mention that Washington Commanders general manager Adam Peters and assistant GM, who it looks like he's going to end up staying with the Commanders, Lance Newmark, immediately got to the Senior Bowl. Like, we lost to the Eagles just a couple of days ago, and like literally the next day or within the next 2 days, they didn't go 48 hours without immediately heading to that Senior Bowl. I believe it was probably even the next day. I believe they have been there since Monday, at the latest Tuesday. They were not playing. We are on it. Let's go scout some talent. We're about to kill it in this draft right now. Now, of course, I'm working on a lot of Senior Bowl content. Y'all already know, man. I can't wait to get this draft stuff to y'all. Like first of all, again, we got to address what are the Commanders' biggest positions of need. I'm going to rank those. And then we got to take a look at some of the top players available at different positions of need that in this upcoming draft and all kinds of stuff. So I'm super excited. But I did want to let you know that Adam Peters and Lance Newmark, within 48 hours of losing to the Eagles, were already at that Senior Bowl getting to work. So be on the lookout for that, because when Adam Peters was with the 49ers, I talked about this in last offseason, when Adam Peters was with the 49ers, they drafted a lot of guys from the Senior Bowl. They love the Senior Bowl, and I feel like Adam Peters had a lot to do with that. So be on the lookout when you're watching this Senior Bowl, and I'm gonna try to do some videos and some content around like some of the biggest standouts from the Senior Bowl. You already know I'm rooting for a lot of my Georgia Bulldogs out there. I'm seeing my dogs Trevor Etienne and Smile London and Arian Smith showing out and things like that. I think a few other Georgia Bulldogs are having great Senior Bowl trips as well. But y'all already know I'm working on some content for that as well. I'll probably do like the biggest standouts. So just be on the lookout. Again, that's why I'm getting to the point where I got to do like 2-3 videos a day, because on top of the content that I already have planned, breaking news comes out of nowhere, like Kliff Kingsbury is staying. So be on the lookout for all of that and more. Probably going to do another video tonight talking about that defensive tackle that the Commanders are apparently attached to in free agency. Be on the lookout for that. And yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff on the like button, stiff on the subscription button, stiff on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned, follow the content. Really appreciate all of y'all. If you made it this far in the video, man, I salute you big time. Really appreciate that. And of course, as promised, the answer to the trivia question I gave you before the intro, the answer was defensive tackle Deron Payne. Just to let you know. I thought that was a pretty decent one. That wasn't hard, but it also wasn't like super obvious like some of the other ones were. I mean, I feel like most people are gonna guess, like probably 90-something% of y'all may already guess that before I gave you the answer at the end of the video. But either way, I'm just, I'm still gonna give y'all this trivia. My grandma gave me this calendar, and we're gonna do this trivia every day. I can go ahead and take that one off and get ready for the January 30th. Even though by the time I do a video tonight, probably still be January 29th, so I may not do the trivia the immediate next video, but just know tomorrow, January 30th, y'all are gonna get another trivia question. But yeah, man, I really appreciate y'all. Do not leave this video out leaving a like, and of course let me know in the comment section how you feel about Kliff Kingsbury staying, and how do you agree with me how monumental that is. Also let me know how you feel about the whole David Blau situation. Do you feel like he's as good as gone already this off season, not too long from now? Let me know how you feel about Adam Peters and Lance Newmark going to the Senior Bowl within 48 hours of losing to the Eagles. Like, they're ready to go, hitting the ground running. So let me know how you feel about all of that and more. I really appreciate y'all. Again, make sure you hit that like button on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.